Good morning, creative coding students. I'm back in school today to do this screencast for you. We're looking at lesson 18 today. This is the collisions lesson. So in the past few lessons, we've been looking at velocity, we've been looking at acceleration, basically using the counter pattern with velocity. We've also looked at the is touching command. So what happens when two sprites kind of come together and what we can do with that. So this lesson, the class programs their sprites to interact in new ways. After a brief review of how they use the is touching block, the class brainstorms other ways that two sprites can interact. They then use the is touching to make one sprite push off another or push another across the screen before practicing the 4 collision blocks. And so the 4 that we're going to be looking at today are collide, displace, bounce, and bounce off. And so under the vocabulary for this particular lesson, we have abstraction, a simplified representation of something more complex. Abstractions allow you to hide details to help you manage complexity, focus on relevant concepts, and reason about problems at a higher level. The code we're looking at, of course, is those 4 blocks that were mentioned earlier: the sprite.bounce, the sprite.bounce off, the sprite.collide, sprite.displace, the set collider, and the sprite.bounciness property. So lots of new code. If you look at the lesson today, it's a really long one. This one, we got 17 different puzzles or activities. The good news for those of you who may be feeling overwhelmed and you've got lots of stuff going on is this is the last new lesson that you're going to have until next Tuesday. So Friday, we won't be having any new lessons. It'll just be a kind of your makeup day to get caught up. If you want to, you can take this lesson, 18, and kind of break it up between now and Friday if you want to do that, so you can work on some of the other assignments for other teachers and other classes. So let's go ahead and dive right in to this lesson here. So far, you've been able to create simple sprite interactions by using the sprite.isTouching block. For example, you reset a coin to a different location on the screen when a character touches it. Now it's time to start making sprites have more complex interactions. So we're going to run this program and observe the interaction between the two sprites. Discuss with a neighbor using only the commands you already know how you could create this kind of interaction. There are many ways to do it, but here are some blocks to consider. So let's look at what it is doing first, and then we can kind of talk about what we think would happen or how we could code this up. So you've got the kind of giraffe guy is moving over towards the monkey guy here. And then as soon as they are touching, both of them are going to move off the screen at the same pace. So hopefully you're thinking about, well, how would I do this? We already know the isTouching command, so of course we're going to have some type of conditional statement where once the two are touching, we're going to do something. And in this case, we're only having them move to the right. So all we really need to do to set this up, well, several different options. Option 1, probably the easiest, when they're touching. So we say if giraffe is touching the monkey, then we set the velocity of the monkey equal to the velocity of the giraffe. And it would be velocity.x, because they're moving in the x axis. They're not moving in the y-axis. If we wanted to do a little bit harder, we could use the counter pattern, and we could say if giraffe dot is touching the monkey, then we could say giraffe.x equals giraffe.x plus, or monkey.x equals monkey.x plus however fast the giraffe is moving. So those are kind of 2 different ways that you could do it, either using the counter pattern or using the velocity option there. So we go ahead and finish this level. Sorry you didn't hear the da-da-da because I don't have the speakers hooked up. I have to use my headphone microphone now, kind of different and lame, I guess. Let me reset this one here, and we will go through this particular activity. So, you should have discussed with your classmates how you could create sprite interaction you saw on the last level. Now it's your turn to program it yourself. How can you make the giraffe move the monkey off the screen? The giraffe is already moving across the screen toward the monkey, but the sprite interaction itself hasn't been programmed. Use the plan you developed with your classmates on the last level to program the sprite interaction yourself. So this is exactly kind of what we talked about when we went over, is we need some type of if statement. We need to be able to tell when these two things touch. You notice as well, they didn't put the sprite.x here in the toolbox. They just put the sprite.velocity, which is kind of what I predicted would be the easier way. So the first step is we've got to check. All of this, of course, is occurring within the draw loop. If you remember, we've gone over this lots of times. You set up all of the variables and the sprites in the beginning, and then you manipulate them in the draw loop. That's kind of the meat of the program when it's really running. So in here, we're going to check to see if the two sprites are touching. So we're going to drag our is touching block right in here. And we're going to put in a giraffe when it is touching. Oh, I guess I got to, yeah, I need two F's, not two E's. There we go. Giraffe, and then we're going to do is touching the monkey. And once the giraffe touches the monkey, we're going to set the velocity of the monkey equal to the velocity of the giraffe. Well, that's the velocity of the giraffe. We just look back at the beginning of the program, and it sets the giraffe.velocity x equals 1. So in here, we just put 1, and then we're going to run that program. And so now, once the giraffe touches the monkey, sorry, it was late night last night. And it's going. And once it touches the monkey moves in the same position, and it appears that the giraffe is pushing the monkey. When in all reality, we could have the giraffe stop and the monkey just continue to go. But there we have it. So, finished puzzle 3. So, puzzle 4, you're going to write your own sprite interaction. In the last level, you should have written code for a sprite interaction that you developed with your classmates. This time, try to write the program on your own, but you can use the patterns you saw in the last level. So the elephant should push the hippo off the screen. Notice that the elephant moves at a random y velocity each time the program runs. Using the patterns from the last level, write the code that makes the elephant push the hippo off the screen. Okay, so we have the hippos going to move. Really, the only change you have to make, well, actually 2 changes. Number 1 from the last program is we've got to do the y velocity instead of the x velocity. And this time, instead of setting it equal to a certain number like we did in our first program, we're just going to set the hippo.velocity equal to elephant.velocity, since they're going to be changing the elephant velocity each time. So this one, hopefully, you should be able to have figured out on your own, but we'll go ahead and just do it. We got a little bit of time left here. So we just say if they are touching. So if the elephant is touching the hippo, then we're just going to set the hippo.velocity y equal to the elephant.velocity y. Then, no matter what the speed is or the velocity is that the random number generator is creating, it's always going to be the same as the one that the hippo has. So there you have it. Great introduction. If you can go ahead and finish the lesson on your own, then by all means do so. If you need additional helps, I'll be creating some for some of these additional puzzles for you to be able to figure out as you go through. Best of luck. Hope you guys are holding out well and understanding these lessons. Please feel free to contact me, email me if you're having any difficulties.